Okay, good morning, everyone. It's nice to see you. I was nearly to say, but it's nice to have you with us. I hope that you have a nice morning and that we will have a nice hour together here. My name is Bo Wallteg. I am actually the editor for the Nordic packaging magazine, Emballage, a magazine that was asked by the industry, the bioplastic industry in 2012, if we could start a bioplastic association, which we could and did. And so next year we celebrate 10 years. Today we have close to 70 member companies and we are growing all the time. We are living in strange times, so the activity have to be on the internet like this. And I think this is something that we are going to continue with, even if we will be able in the future, which I hope and suppose, to meet physically. We work with lobbying, we meet politicians, we do a lot of information work, we participate on exhibitions, and we spread the message in and out about bioplastics to the companies and out from the companies. And there is a great interest for this material group, of course. Today we are actually having two webcasts, this one in the morning here and one at 2 o'clock. And I hope you will join us on both of them. I couldn't say that there is a special focus today on bioplastic, just it's more about plastic in general. But I mean, bioplastic is a part of the plastic industry, and the problems that occurs for the plastic industry today could also be a problem for the bioplastic industry. So we are going to talk about how to take care of the use plastics better, and what about chemical recycling and so on during the day. I have said for a long time now that we are living in something called, it's not only a COVID-19 pandemic, it's also a plastic pandemic that we are living in. And I would say that the vaccine for this is knowledge, education, information. At the same time, I say that unfortunately, not so many people seems to be willing to take the vaccine. You are, as you are with us, I hope, but there should be many more. Information and knowledge is the base for making plastic a circular and good material in the future. In this sending now in the morning, we will meet Åsa Stenmarck from the Swedish Environmental Protection Agency. She is responsible for the Swedish coordination for sustainable plastic use, something that they were asked by the government in Sweden to take care of last year. And what that actually means, she will explain to you in just a few moments. I also like to say that we are doing this webcast in cooperation with the leading European packaging cluster, PackBridge. And yeah, that's about all. You can ask questions, as you know, in the chat, and we will take care of them after Åsa's presentation. So, Åsa, I don't say the stage is yours, I say the screen is yours. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Bosse, and bear with me and my dogs in the background, but I will try to share screen. There we are. Please let me know if you see it.
Now we see you have to put it in full screen.
There we are, right?
So yes, that's good.
Okay, so hello to everyone, and I can see there's a lot of participants. It would be nice to see you all in person, of course, and sort of get a connection. But as Bosse said, it's these kinds of times. We just have to do it the best we could. I'm very happy to be here today and to talk to you about the National Plastics Coordination, which I'm head of, I'm responsible for it, but I'm not the only one working with it. So we are in total 5 people at the Swedish EPA contributing to this work, and in total at the EPA we're about 20 persons working with plastics from different angles. So I'm not the only one in this matter. But I will try to explain to you a little bit today what the National Plastic Coordination is and how we work. And then I will describe a little bit what we see is sustainable plastic use. And I already now apologize because parts of my slides are in Swedish, parts in English. So I will do my best to translate. I hope there are also Swedish listeners who can read Swedish, but for the handout later, which I assume will be the case, I can also translate the slides. I just admit I wasn't fully aware that I was going to speak English here today. All right, so the National Plastic Coordination, as Bosse said, we Swedish EPA got this assignment last year from the government, saying that we should set up this platform-like thing where we should focus on both gaining, producing, and spreading knowledge on plastics, and also to create collaboration around this issue with all kinds of different actors. I will come back to the actors in a second, but collaboration, of course, in many ways means spreading of knowledge. We should contribute to, or the whole aim and purpose is that we should reach sustainable plastic use in Sweden, but we should also contribute to international processes, which there are many going on both on international, EU, and also Nordic level. Many different policy actions on plastics and so on and so forth. That's another story. So the guiding principle for us as the coordination is that we should be a driving force in this. We should be also a uniting force in this. And it's very important that we have a holistic perspective. And what do we mean then with holistic perspective? So starting from the ground here, of course, as you all know, there are both negative and positive effects of plastics. And we should be able that we should make sure that both are communicated. We should show alternatives for action, and we should also try to describe the environmental impact of this action. So I was regarding the actors here. You see the flower petals in the flower. We have other authorities than ourselves, many working with different issues of plastics in different angles. We have regions and municipalities, sort of the official part of the society. And we have businesses, of course. We are trying to reach all kinds of businesses, large, small, throughout the whole value chain or value net of plastics. So that's very, very broad. And then, of course, we also have research, other research financiers, but also research performers, or to say researchers that are the ones bringing or taking the knowledge. We cooperate, sorry. So at least one of the dogs, so sorry, this is not very professional, but just like it is. We have the, sorry, hang on. Sorry about that, they were asleep when we started, but then found out that playing was more fun. We also, of course, coming back to where we're focusing, we are, of course, collaborating with all kinds of different other initiatives that are going on in Sweden. So, for example, we have a delegation for circular economy. We have a center for substitution of hazardous substances. We have fossil-free Sweden with roadmaps for different branches on how to be fossil-free. And we have NanoSafe, which is they're working with nanoparticles and nanosafety. And then, of course, in the area of plastics, we have lots of policy and regulations and other things going on from sort of political level, which we're of course also I wouldn't say adjusting to, but of course have to have in mind. So, for example, now the single-use directive and the implementation of that is one of our focuses where we're trying to spread knowledge. We should give an overview of the area in total, and we should show where to find more information, because even though we are sort of the responsible authority here. We cannot do this work all by ourselves. So it's very important that we do it in cooperation with all these other actors, and that we help each other, sort of pulling and pushing each other forward. We want to create meeting possibilities. Of course, it's part of being able to create further cooperation. And we want to be an independent actor, so the knowledge should of course be research-based or fact-based. What's included in the cooperation, very briefly? So plastic, of course, but what's that? So we are also including microplastics. We are including tires, even though that's not plastic, it's rubber, but they are a big source to microplastics. We're not including textiles upstream, but we are including textiles downstream, because as you know, they also create microplastics. So sort of a boundary there with all the work going on in the textile area. But mainly easy to think plastic, microplastic. And we have divided this work into 3 different pillars, you could say. So one is that we work with goals for sustainable plastic use and a roadmap, and I will come back on the roadmap by the end of the presentation. We also work with the knowledge part, so knowledge for different alternatives for action and these actions' effects, as I was mentioning before. All this, of course, to support decisions and to support implementation in different businesses or different municipalities or whoever that are to take action. And then this working with the developed and strengthened networks. So how do we do this more in practice then? It's more than just nice words here on the screen. As I said, the goals and the roadmap, I'll come back to those. We also arrange webinars, and we hope that we very soon can arrange physical meetings as well. Webinars are great, many people can attend, and you reach a lot of people, and you don't have to travel, which is of course also super good. But you should not underestimate the power of meeting physically, being able to talk to each other during coffee breaks and all those kinds of things. I guess you miss it as much as I do. But we will organize these kinds of things in the future, I'm sure. Then we are building up our website, of course. So working hard on that, also working hard on getting linkages to the right places, creating cooperation also on the website. We won't develop a report library, so I should update this picture. Instead, we have decided that we will on the website put links to relevant reports where feasible on the site and where we know there's more to read in other places. So we think that will be easier for the reader to find information rather than to have a library where you search for information yourself. We're organizing working groups. One example is that we are working together with the construction and demolition industry and the waste collection and sorting and recycling industry in order to find out what could be feasible options to sort from construction and demolition sites in terms of plastic. That's one example. We're also able to start working groups when we find that there's a question maybe that needs to be discussed and where we can help actors to get together. We also have a network for the other authorities and for the other research financiers. And then there's also some more, but we're working a lot with publishing reports, developing projects, and so on and so forth. How could you, as a listener here today, engage in this? As I said before, cooperation is key here and very, very essential. And what I haven't said, but what is our aim is that we should be market-driven, I guess would be the sort of word that you use in the business world. We want to provide all the actors with the information that they need in order to make this change. So any idea or anything that you sort of think that we could do, please just contact us and we'll see what we could make out of it. Of course, we are happy if you spread the word that we are sort of existing, I should put it, and that others could also come and contribute and help and find information and so on and so forth. As I said, give input and feedback on your needs. Visit us on the website, I mean, not physically perhaps. To have this dialogue open with all kinds of different actors is really important. So once again, if you think that you know or want to tell us something that might be of interest, don't hesitate to contact us. Please also help us collect and transfer knowledge that you might have. So if you're stumbling on some important report or are in a project doing something, that's also great for us to know. And we want to include good examples from companies and so on our website as we build it. But it's under construction, so it's not fully there yet. Then I will jump to sustainable plastic use and what that is, and explain to you a little bit about how far we have gotten in that work. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. So we say that sustainable plastic use is when plastic is used in the right places, misspelled that, places, in resource and climate effective, non-hazardous and circular flows, and with a minimal leakage. And I guess that this is not news to anyone, that these are the sort of important pillars in sustainable plastic use. We have created this donut, which is also a familiar shape to all of you, I believe. But we have our 4 effect areas, I guess would be the English translation, effektområden in Swedish. Raw material with minimal environmental impact, resource efficient use, minimized leakage, and increased and safe recycling. So these are the areas where we are focusing the work, and these sort of kind of natural areas when you talk about sustainable plastic use. We did a project, the heading hopped a little bit here, but we did a project this summer with Material Economics and IVL, Swedish Environmental Research Institute, on scenarios on sustainable plastic use. And they made scenarios for 2045. This is now when my Swedish slide starts, so sorry for that. And they said that there are many ways, of course, to reach sustainable plastic use. They created a sort of measurement, plastic use, which is this 1818 tons. How much plastic do we need in the society, basically? And then they looked at 3 different scenarios: so new processes, circularity, and still fossil raw material, but use of CCS. And then they set up different kinds of solution strategies: so smarter use, substitution, mechanical recycling, CCU, chemical recycling, and then this, if you use fossils, but also use the CCS. And the numbers, they are well underbuilt, of course, but it's not the important thing here. The important thing is, and the main finding is that it's not possible to reach sustainable plastic use just working with one of these areas. So if we were only to work with smarter use, for example, we wouldn't reach there. If we were only to work on recycling, we wouldn't reach it. So we need all these areas in order to reach sustainable plastic use. What's also very clear from the report, not very clear on this picture, but it is that this is huge changes to us in the society. So taking recycling as an example, we are, as some of you might know, now on 10% of our total plastic use, maybe up to 20 if you only count packaging. But we have to reach like 60-70%. So as you understand, this is a huge change that we need to do. So huge change, working on all kinds of solutions here at the same time. You might feel that that's a little bit, too much to deal with, but I choose to look at it from the other way around, saying that, okay, there's so much we can do, and everyone can do something about it. So using it more like a inspirational thought rather than sort of too much. I will describe briefly all the different effect areas that we have. So the first one being resource efficient use. And of course, in order to reach the goals that we have, the SDGs and the Swedish environmental goals, all plastic, like all other resources, note that. So we are talking about plastics, but this goes for all other resources. We need to use them more efficiently to gain more use of each ton or kilogram that we use. And we could reach this by decreasing the use of unnecessary items. And of course, what's unnecessary might be a very personal issue, but I usually give this example of these, I don't know even what you call them in English, but you put it on your shoes in order not to wet the floor when you go inside. They're very popular at Swedish preschools for parents to pick up their kids. But another way to reach this is just that the parents take off the shoes when they enter the preschool or kindergarten. So that's one example of partly unnecessary use. You could also use less material to reach the same function. For example, you could work with the packaging. Good examples coming from bread companies, with reducing sizes of the bread, the bag around the bread. Of course, without compromising with the quality of the bread inside. And there are many other examples of this as well. Another option is to increase the lifespan or the usage of the plastic products, including using products multiple times, and including not unnecessary sort of tear and wear on the product. So building more products that are built to last basically. Of course, when you do this, this might mean that you actually need more material in the beginning, like in the first use phase. So, but then if you look at it in a sort of life cycle perspective, the gains might still be there. So always important when you work with this, that you sort of put the whole life cycle of the product in perspective. Raw material with minimal environmental impact. Here we include bio-based, we include recycled materials, and we also include the fact that we shouldn't use unwanted or hazardous chemicals in our products. We know that we have a decreased climate impact from recycled materials. I guess that's not news to anyone. We know that we have also, of course, should mention that especially today, of course, from bio-based products, it's another impact, of course, lower on carbon dioxide. And we know that we could work with substitution to other materials as well. That sometimes is better and sometimes it's not better than plastic. So once again here, you could end up in a sort of endless discussion on what material that fits in what application, and it will always be that you have to decide it from case to case, unfortunately. So we're not able to say that paper is always better than plastics, or bio-based is always better than fossil-based or whatever. We need to take it case by case. And as I said, of course, substitution to hazardous and substances of high concern in line with all regulations and things like that should be also noted. To dive into this a little bit more, we know that plastic, which is produced by a virgin material and is incinerated with energy recovery, would give a discharge of 5 tons carbon dioxide equivalent per ton of plastic. So that's what we know. Recycled content or recycled raw material would have 1/3 of that in impact. So that's a big thing. Biobased would of course have a completely different carbon dioxide footprint. We could talk about bio-based plastics, but you could also talk about other fiber-based materials, of course. So as I said, changing to other materials. Then we also have the issue I was about to say, but of biodegradable plastic, which is as far as we now know, often meaning that it's degradable in an industrial compost. In Sweden, we have very few of these composts, none to be specific. And these kinds of degradable plastics also cause problems when they end up in the normal recycling routes. So we are a little bit reluctant to biodegradable plastics. We don't think that that's the way to solve the plastic pandemic, as Bosa used, but the plastic issues that we are facing. They do have good applications. Threads for operation is mentioned here, but there are also other applications. Also, development is going very rapidly forward. So of course, we are getting news on plastic that are now degrading out in the forest and so on and so forth. This is good, but I still think that we stick to the fact that this won't solve the plastic problem alone. We need also to work on all these other the other aspects and other raw materials. Increased recycling and increased recycling and recycling with high quality is important. Today, lots of plastic recycling is downgrading of the material, so we need to keep the value to a higher extent than we do now. And this sort of here we need to work on 2 ends, so to speak. We need to increase the share of plastic that is collected for recycling. It's still very low, both from households but also from businesses. We see a lot of plastic ending up in the mixed waste streams. But out of that plastic, we also need to increase the amounts that are actually being recycled. And of course, it's a matter of stimulating the demand for recycled plastic and recycled raw materials, but it's also about creating products that are possible to recycle. So design is extremely important here. And there are both sort of carrots and whippets that you could whips that you could go here if you want to talk about policy, but you could also do a lot on a voluntary basis, and we have many companies doing pledges that their products should be recyclable, that they should contain of recycled or bio-based content, linking back to the last page and so on and so forth. So we also find it really hopeful and positive that we also see these kinds of voluntary pledges and initiatives. The last of the affected areas is to minimize or decrease the leakage. Plastic is not intended to end up in nature. It could harm people, but more likely, I was about to say, but the bigger danger for animals and the nature as such. And here we include both large plastic items, littering, but also microplastics, of course, ending up in nature. And this is, I think, the driving force for why plastic is so high on the political agenda now since 3 years or 4 years. The fact that we are seeing that it never vanishes when it ends up in nature, and we find it everywhere on places where humans not normally go and so on. I guess you've all seen these horrible pictures of plastic in the oceans and animals getting stuck in plastic items and so on. we don't know actually how big a risk the microplastics are. We don't know the damage that they might cause, but we do know that they are not a natural material. So we think that we should take precautions and putting safety first, and therefore minimize the leakages. We have different kinds of also knowledge gap when it comes to what kinds of measures that could be put in. For example, here washeries, washing where you wash clothes are mentioned as one example where you could put in solutions at source. We don't really know, and it's hard to measure. So this is an area where we're working a lot with gaining more knowledge actually, and trying to put together the knowledge that are actually out there in order to see what kind of actions could be taken, and where do we need more knowledge. Okay, last slide, the roadmap. I wanted to highlight that because I think it's we want it to be known by many, of course. We are developing it now, starting now, and working this year with it. Hopefully we will have a first version ready by the end of March for sort of like a first launch, but then we know that we have to work with indicators on how to follow up and things like that during the year. But our aim and what we want to reach here is just sort of to point out the direction on where are we going in terms of sustainable plastic use. How should we reach the goal, and what could different actors do in order to reach the goal? So all these actors, if you remember the flower in the beginning, could of course do something, and we want it to be an inspiration for people that want to make a change, basically. We have a broad reference group of about 60 people involved here, and we hope that it would be even more broadly acknowledged once we launch it. There will be opportunities also for people not sitting in the reference group to give input to it later on. And would you be interested in that, please just contact me. I'm personally looking forward to this a lot. We did a survey in last spring when we started this work to see what different actors sort of needed from the plastic coordination, and this was one of the outputs that many people really wanted, this kind of document or this kind of guidance on how to work with this issue. That I find that everyone that I meet, at least, they want to contribute and want to do things, but sometimes it's hard to know what to do exactly. Hopefully we can spread some light on that, if not all light, but some light. That was my full presentation. You have my contact there. It's not very hard to get. Forname, aftername, and naturvårdsverket.se. So please get in touch if you have any further questions or issues that we won't take now in the questions and answers, or if you think of anything in the future. And thank you so much for listening. And now to questions and answers, right?
Yes, that's right. Thank you very much, Åsa. Perfect. But the first question we must ask ourselves is, who let the dogs out? Of course.
I did.
You did, yes.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem. This is what happens now when we are working from home.
Yeah, I know. It's much easier when you're at the office.
This work that you're doing right now, is it supposed to create a foundation for future legislation, or what is happening when you're finished with this?
Yes and no, I would say. So, Swedish EPA, of course, as the kind of authority that we are, we have the opportunity to suggest policy instruments and including legislations to the government, of course. We also often get assignments from the governments on how to go about in different issues. So we have now one, for example, on material recycling, including chemical recycling. And trying to find out what's needed in order to increase in Sweden. So yeah, it could be, but I also think that we work a lot with those voluntary and very, how should I put it in English, very willing spirit from all the actors out there to actually drive a change. And I'm thinking that maybe it's also possible to go faster than legislation, because legislation is kind of a slow track.
Of course, I have to ask you a little bit about bioplastics also. You had it in your presentation, but did I understand you right that you are a little bit skeptic to bioplastics as a solution?
No, not bioplastics.
As a part of the solution, sorry, as a part of the solution, I should say.
Bio-based plastic is a very important part of the solution, I would say. So I should have put more emphasis on that. Of course, we need to change to bioplastics to a much larger extent than the 2-3% that we see today. There are, of course, work to do in terms of getting it right when it comes to sustainability and these kinds of issues. I'm sure you're aware of that. Other things that might come with bio-based materials in general. Of course, we need to make it sure. Of course, we also need to see, the forest or the bio sources should are claimed by many as well. So we need to make sure that they are used in the right places. But bio-based plastic is definitely a part of the solution. Biodegradable plastics might have their share of the solution, but I don't see them, biodegradable plastic, as the main solution. As for example, China do, they have said that they are banning other plastics, but not biodegradable plastic, which I think is a bit problematic.
Yes.
I hope I was clear.
Okay. And compostables?
Yeah, I include compostables in the biodegradable.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I understand. But why is it that we don't have any composting utilities here in Sweden, you think? Is it because there's no material to take care of, or what's the reason?
No, that's not the case. The thing is that the industrial composting is mainly focusing on organic waste, and food waste from households is one part. And in Sweden, we have had the political will to change that treatment to anaerobic digestion instead of composting. So now, as far as I know, all municipalities that are having collection for food waste are also sending that to anaerobic digestion. So it makes sort of the market smaller for industrial composting.
I was listening to the European Bioplastics Congress in December, and they were talking a lot about compostable materials, and also that they think there should be much more of it down in Europe, at least, because whatever we do with recycling, mechanical recycling or chemical recycling, whatever, we will never be able to take care of all the plastics. And in that case, if you can make more and more flexible material, for example, that usually many times ends up in the ocean, it would be much better to have a compostable material in that. So they say we need much more compostable material. In that case, I think Sweden has to make a turn and also focus a little bit on that, maybe.
We are looking into it, so I wouldn't say that we are sort of totally dismissing it. Of course, we're sort of keeping an eye on what's happening and what's going on. And would we have, for example, plastics that are possible to run through the anaerobic digesting? That would be good for Sweden. The waste infrastructure is completely different when you look at the south of Europe, for example. They do have industrial composting, so more natural for them to sort of take that path. I'm partly agreeing with what you're saying, that of course, and I think I said it before as well, it could be part of the solution, but not the only solution, as it's sometimes put, that if we only make all plastics biodegradable, we will sort of be home. I don't think that's the case. We should also acknowledge that it's kind of a long cycle to take through biodegrading things and then building them up again. So we need to also work with the resource efficiency here. And as you all know, since you're the expert here, biodegradable plastic or compostable plastic doesn't recycle so well yet. But who might tell? Maybe that development will also go forward. So I'm like looking forward to development within the area as well.
Do you think that the quite new taxes on carrier bags is a good help for reaching sustainable plastic future?
One should know that that tax is coming from the fact that they want to decrease, the EIC, the EU Commission, want to decrease leakage of plastic and plastic bags. Not so much in Sweden, even though we see it in littering, but very much in Europe ends up in the wrong places out in the nature. So that's the reason why we have this directive on decreasing the use of plastic bags down to 40 per person. The tax is very efficient. If you look at just is it efficient on for that purpose? Yes, we have decreased a lot. Is it efficient in terms of what are we using instead? Paper bags, the multi-use bags. Maybe we have too many of those now. So if you're bad at bringing them back and so on, we don't really know that. So we'll see if we could find resources to sort of measure that during this year. So it's yes and no on that matter. It's very
it's a political answer.
Yeah, it's partly political, but also the purpose is littering and not resource efficiency. So when you look at it from the littering aspect, it's efficient. When you look at it from a resource efficient perspective, we're not sure. If we look at it from a debate perspective and the focus that it might put on the question that we need to change plastic use or we need to change consumption in general, then that's a good icebreaker to use.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I have a feeling that I'm standing in the way for some questions from the audience here. So, Olof, do we have anything? I think you have a good look at that.
Absolutely. There has been a lot of questions here, lots of interest, and we're very happy about that. And hopefully we will be able to answer all of them in due time before we have to let this session go. But we can start with this one from Abir. Åsa, how do you cooperate with business? If you could give an example, that would be helpful to understand this.
Yeah, good question, and I'll try to answer. So we're trying as much as we can. That's the first thing to say. Being visible like this is one way, but also being open to meetings and so on that's another way. But I think the main and we have two main ways, I would say. So one is that we are running quite a lot of projects actually financed by the government through us on plastics, and to almost all of this we're having reference groups with businesses or other actors that are relevant for the project's content. So that's one way of really listening in and understanding, okay, what's working, what's not working, what's your constraints and so on with a business perspective. So once again, are you interested in joining these groups? I cannot tell you what projects we will do this year, but it's always good to get names on people that are willing to contribute. That's one opportunity. Then we also have these working groups that we have launched 3 of them so far, where the aim is that we should, if we're picking up on questions that we see are coming from different kinds of actors or maybe within one part of the value chain, we could take the opportunity, and we think that a discussion and maybe getting together and sort of sort out what's or trying to find solutions together could be an option. We have the opportunity to start these kinds of groups. So if you have ideas where you think that could be beneficial, we're also very happy to hear that. That's 2 examples on how we're cooperating with business. Being out like this, trying to reach out and trying to answer questions is also one, but doing it like this is a bit anonymous for all of you, I guess. So maybe not so obvious, but good for me to hear your questions at least.
Thank you very much, Åsa. Another one is from Stefan. Slide showing climate neutrality 2045. What products in the substitution? You mentioned 10% in circularity. So I think he's asking what kind of products will be in the substitution.
Yeah, we didn't look into specific products like that. We looked about, there are assumptions made on car sharing, for example, in order to decrease. There are it's different kinds of assumptions coming together, being that number. Car sharing is one. That's not substitution, but also changing to wood in certain applications. Changing to other materials in certain applications. I think in packaging was one example. I don't have it's exactly in my head, but Stefan, please email me and I can try to find you the super correct answer.
Okay, thank you very much. Time is flying and sadly we only can prolong this for 5 more minutes. So I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions, but I'll try to print the Q&A session so we have all the questions, and then we can forward that to you, Åsa, and to all of us, and see how many we can try to answer. And we'll try to answer most of your questions. There has been a lot of interest here. The next one, Åsa, is from Ulrika. Do we have figures on how chemical recycled materials affect the carbon footprint reduction today? Is a reduction up to a third also for this?
No, I consider that for mechanical recycling, but for chemical recycling, we don't really know. We have a report coming where the preliminary results show that it will be more beneficial than incineration, but depending a little bit on losses in processes and so on. Chemical recycling, as you know, is a really new area, so and it's also energy, very energy consuming. So mechanical recycling will be better, but chemical recycling, as I said, better than incineration. So, but I don't have exact numbers for how much better.
Okay, thank you very much, Åsa. Let's go for another one. This one is from Fredrik Hellman. Bio-based raw material, or råvara. What do you count on that they will provide in carbon footprint? And more on that, is there a possibility that they can use a lot of water in regards to, for instance, biomaterial? Sorry, I had to translate it from Swedish, so I will have to think a little bit extra on that.
No, I'll actually see the question here.
Perfect.
Good question, Fredrik. This was what I meant, that bio-based raw materials come with other footprints than fossil, and of course we need to take that into consideration. In general, and I don't know if I should use the strong word sadly, but we are very focused on the carbon dioxide. And now it sounds maybe that I'm opposed to biodegradable. I'm not. That's the way we have to go. But as I said a little bit in my answer to Bosse before, we also need to take precautions that we are using the right bio-based materials, and not this old debate with competing with food production, for example, and so on. There's a lot of development, about other materials for plastics that are not competing in this way. Which is very inspiring and fun to follow. So, but of course, an important issue to have in mind when you're changing. Also, of course, if you're changing to paper or something, that you have to take that into consideration. I don't know how good an answer it was, but you should, of course, consider the whole environmental footprint of any raw material. Would be maybe the short answer.
Okay, thank you very much, Åsa. We have time for just one more question, and then we have to close this session, sadly. But as we said before, we will try to direct all of the questions to you, Åsa. This one is from...
best answer.
Absolutely, thank you. We'll take this one from Kjell Eva. He would like your thoughts on the supply side of bio-based plastics, both sugar and forest-based, in the short and the medium term.
This is not my main area of expertise. I'm guessing there's sitting many people who can answer this than I in the audience, but my understanding is that we are in need of finding more sources than we have today. Also coming back to this, what I said with competing with other resources and other usage of bio-based materials. So my hope and belief is that we will manage that and to find sustainable bio-based sources for plastics. In the short term, I guess there's a big interest for bio-based, bigger and bigger. And in the medium and long term, I hope that that's increasing. But I've also seen figures that bio-based could cover 50% of the plastic need that we have today. So of course, we also need to work with reduction and recycling in order to cover that. And eventually, when we have bio-based plastics recycled in a good way, we will be all bio. So that's my answer to that, but I'm not the most knowledgeable person.
Thank you very much, Åsa. We'll close the session here, and I'll leave over the word to Bosse and you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Åsa. Very nice. Good presentation. We could continue for a long time, I think, but yeah. I also think that people are getting hungry now. It's 12 o'clock soon, and so we have to break here, and we might come back with more questions to you some other time. But we have a question from one of the participants. I think you mentioned that in the beginning, your presentation. Will you share that one, or how was it?
I can happily share it with you. I could do it right away. If you want it translated, I will need some
No, you better take care of that. We are not in that hurry, but I think we can take it, and either we distribute it to the participants, or we put it up on Nordic Bioplastics webpage where it could be downloaded. And also, I think we have been recording the whole session here, and maybe we can put that also on the website in one way or another. So for those of you who want to listen again or take part of the presentation, it will be possible. So what I can say now is take a break, take a lunch, relax, check the mails, and log in again for the next session that starts at 2 o'clock. Then we have Nova Institute from Germany and BASF. And it's going to be about renewable carbon, and we're also going to talk about chemical recycling. So I think it will be very interesting. So have a nice lunch, and look forward to see you back again. Bye-bye.